I never thought devotion could curdle into venom. But there I was, knife in hand, staring at the man I'd spent 17 years cradling like a fragile heirloom, his neck exposed in sleep like it was begging for the slice. The betrayal hit harder than any car crash. My husband, paralyzed from the waist down since our wedding night accident, whispering to his mistress that I was nothing but a glorified maid. My love just chains he'd forged to keep his dirty empire intact. And the worst part? I'd taken the fall for his sins, rotting in the shadows of his wealth while he pulled strings from that goddamn wheelchair. A puppeteer in paralysis. It started 17 years ago in the sticky heat of a Brooklyn summer. Back when I was Brooklyn Hayes, just 25, fresh-faced and foolish, with dreams bigger than the brownstones we called home. I'd met Victor Langford at a rooftop party in Williamsburg. The kind where trust fund kids mix craft cocktails with cocaine-fueled confessions. He was everything I wasn't. Old money, Yale polish, the kind of smile that could disarm a room full of skeptics. I was a barista with a side hustle in graphic design, scraping by on tips and talent, but Victor saw me, really saw me, and whispered promises of forever over stolen kisses under string lights. We married 6 months later in a courthouse ceremony, me in a thrift store lace dress, him in a bespoke suit that cost more than my rent for a year. That night, as we drove back to his family's sprawling estate on the outskirts of a city, technically mine now, but it always felt like borrowed time, the world shattered. A truck swerved on the interstate, tires screaming like banshees, and metal twisted around us. I walked away with bruises and a concussion. Victor didn't. Doctors said the spinal cord snapped clean, paraplegic for life. No miracles in modern medicine. He woke up in that hospital bed, eyes hollow, and I swore I'd be his anchor. "You're my miracle, Brooke," he murmured, fingers tracing my knuckles. I believed him. God, how I believed him. The years blurred into a ritual of care, mornings wheeling him to the sun-drenched atrium for coffee he pretended to savor, afternoons massaging limbs that wouldn't obey, evenings reading him case files from his law firm, because even broken, Victor Langford was a shark in silk ties. His family's fortune, oil royalties from Pennsylvania fields his grandfather had fracked into black gold, kept us afloat. But it was my devotion that built the walls around us. I quit my dreams, traded paintbrushes for pill bottles, and became the invisible force holding his world together. Friends drifted, family pitted. "You're a saint, Brooklyn," my sister would say over rare phone calls, her voice laced with the unspoken. "How do you do it?" But saints don't simmer with secrets. Victor's firm specialized in corporate mergers, the kind that swallowed small businesses whole and spat out lawsuits. He consulted from home, barking orders into conference lines, his mind as ruthless as ever. I handled the logistics, scheduling nurses, managing the household staff, even forging his signature on documents when his hands cramped. It was in those quiet moments, shuffling papers in his study, that I first glimpsed the cracks. A memo here, a redacted email there, whispers of insider trading, bribes to regulators, a whistleblower silenced with a fat check. Victor waved it off as business as usual, but I saw the toll, the way his jaw tightened when the phone rang late, the envelopes of cash vanishing into locked drawers. Then came the accident that wasn't mine to bear. 5 years in, a junior associate at the firm, some kid named Eddie Ruiz, uncovered the rot. Victor had been laundering money through shell companies tied to a cartel smuggling fentanyl across the border. Eddie confronted him, recorded the whole thing on his phone. Victor's fix? He paid a fixer to plant evidence pointing to me, my old design gigs, Freelance invoices twisted to look like payoffs. When the feds raided, it was my name on the warrants, Brooklyn Langford, accessory to fraud. I spent 3 months in pretrial detention, the press branding me the devoted wife's dark side. Victor, from his wheelchair, played the victim card masterfully. Tearful interviews about his betrayed trust. The charges dropped when his lawyers shredded the evidence. Too circumstantial, they said, but the stain lingered. I emerged gaunt, my name mud in every Manhattan salon. Why me? I'd whispered that night, curled at the foot of his bed like a whipped dog. Because you're mine to protect, he'd replied, eyes gleaming with something feral. And no one suspects the caregiver. I swallowed it then, chalked it up to love's blind loyalty. But resentment is a slow poison, dripping into your veins until one day, you wake up with fangs. The turning point came on our 17th anniversary, a milestone I'd planned with the fragile optimism of habit. I'd booked a private chef for the penthouse we'd moved to 5 years back, floor-to-ceiling views of the Hudson. A concession to Victor's claustrophobia. The meal was candlelit perfection, seared scallops, vintage Bordeaux. Me in a dress that hugged curves time had softened but not erased. He smiled through it, toasting to the woman who saved me, but his eyes flicked to his phone like it held state secrets. After dessert, I cleared the plates, the clink of china a metronome to my unease. He wheeled into the study for one quick call, and I lingered in the hall, drawn by the murmur of voices. The door was ajar, a sliver of light spilling like an accusation. I pressed close, heart thudding against ribs that felt too tight. Yeah. She's clueless as ever, Victor's voice. Low and laced with contempt. No trace of the tremor he'd faked for years. 17 years of wiping my ass. And she thinks it's romance. Just my servant, keeping the throne warm while I run the show from the shadows. A chuckle, oily and intimate. You should have seen her face during the raid. Pure panic. Took the heat like a champ. Meet me tomorrow? The usual spot. Can't wait to feel my legs again. With you. The phone clicked off. I staggered back, the world tilting like that night on the interstate. Servant. Clueless. Feel my legs again. The words clawed at me, unraveling the tapestry of our life. Was it all a lie? The paralysis, the devotion, the empire built on my bent back? I fled to the guest room, tears hot as solder, and spent the night Googling like a woman possessed, faked paraplegia cases, spinal cord recovery scandals. Forums lit up with stories, husbands milking insurance, wives left in the ruins. But Victor, the golden boy of Langford and Associates, untouchable. Dawn brought clarity, sharp as shattered glass. I couldn't confront him, not yet. He'd spin it, gaslight me into the villain. No. Revenge needed teeth, the kind that bit deep and left scars. That's when I remembered Elena, the eccentric neuroscientist who'd consulted on Victor's case all those years ago. We'd bonded over late-night chats in the hospital corridors, her wild theories about consciousness and quantum entanglement. One day, Brooke, she'd said once, eyes sparkling behind thick glasses, we'll swap souls like outfits. Imagine the chaos. I'd laughed it off as grad school madness. But now? Now it was a lifeline. I tracked her down via LinkedIn Dr. Elena Vasquez, tenured at Columbia, dabbling in fringe neural tech funded by Silicon Valley weirdos. Our coffee meetup in a midtown cafe was a confessional, the betrayal, the faked fall, the stolen life. Elena's face darkened, not with pity, but hunger. I've been working on it, she admitted, sliding a napkin sketch of neural interfaces, electrodes thinner than whispers. Body autonomy reversal. Not sci-fi real, but volatile. Risky as hell. You win. The decision was controversial from the jump, trading my body for his, hijacking his form to dismantle his world from the inside. Ethically, a dumpster fire. Legally, a felony wrapped in experimental consent forms Elena forged with a wink. But as I stared at the sketch, Victor's mocking laugh echoed in my skull. Do it, I said. Make me him. The procedure happened in her basement lab. A converted brownstone in Harlem reeking of solder and stale espresso. No anesthesiologist. Just 4 drips of sedatives and a helmet rigged with fiber optics that hummed like angry bees. Elena's team, 2 postdocs and a hacker kid, monitored vitals on laptops flickering with code. It's not a full swap, she warned, strapping me down. More like a hijack. Your mind in his body. His in limbo. Wake up as Victor. But remember, the link phrase after 72 hours. Use it wisely. The world dissolved in a scream of static. Pain lanced through me. Not physical, but existential, like being peeled from your skin and shoved into a stranger's. When I opened my eyes, his eyes, I was staring at my own face, slack-jawed on the gurney beside me. Elena unstrapped Brooklyn me, propping her up like a doll. It worked, she breathed. You're Victor now. Go. The mirror in the corner was a gut punch, tall, broad-shouldered, with that patrician jaw and salt and pepper hair I'd combed for years. Legs that moved with a flex of will. I stood, wobbling, and laughed. A deep baritone rumble that wasn't mine. Power surged through me, intoxicating and vile. This was revenge's first taste, stepping into the cage of the beast. I wheeled my old body, Brooklyn's shell, back to the penthouse in the service van. Elena's postdoc at the wheel. Victor's phone buzzed with texts from his mistress. A lithe attorney named Sophia, who'd been siphoning firm secrets for her own climb. The usual spot was a no-tell motel in Jersey. The kind with neon signs flickering like guilty consciences. But first, the firm. I had his face, his voice, his keycard, access to everything. Langford and Associates occupied the top 3 floors of a glass monolith in the financial district, a temple to greed where brokers high-fived over hostile takeovers. I arrived in Victor's chauffeured Escalade, barking at the doorman like I owned the air he breathed, which, in a way, I did. The executive floor was a hive of deference, assistants scattering like roaches. Partners nodding with greased deference. Morning. Vic, drawled Harlan, his right-hand man, a weasel in worsted wool. Boards waiting on the Ruiz merger. That whistleblower's stink cleared up. I leaned on the cane I'd grabbed for authenticity, channeling Victor's drawl. Cleared? Hell. It's fertilizer now. Let's bury him. The boardroom was walnut-paneled opulence, projections flickering with spreadsheets of laundered millions. As they droned, I hacked his laptop, password ServantBrook1, the bastard uploading everything to Elena's anonymous server, emails, wire transfers, the cartel ledgers. One click, and the feds would feast. But controversy brewed in my gut. These men weren't innocents, complicit vipers, but ruining them meant collateral, layoffs, suicides, families shattered. Was I any better? Playing God in stolen skin? I pushed it down, focusing on the hook, Sophia's midday meeting. I texted her from Victor's phone. Change of plans. Penthouse.
Now.
Her reply, kinky. On my way. She arrived like a storm in stilettos. All red lipstick and ambition. Shedding her coat to reveal lace that screamed conquest. Miss these legs, she purred, tracing his thigh. Revulsion coiled in me, but I played along, drawing her close until her breath hitched. Tell me everything, I murmured, lips brushing her ear. The affair. The faked crash. How long? Her eyes widened, then narrowed. Smart girl. Smelling the trap. Victor. What the? I clamped a hand over her mouth, the other pinning her wrists. Not violence, but control, the kind he'd wielded over me. It's me, Sophia. Brooklyn. And you're going to confess, or this all burns. Panic flickered, then calculation. She spilled. The affair started post-crash. Victor faking paralysis for the insurance payout, $12 million. Funneled into the cartel to cover a bad bet. The raid? His idea. Framing me to tie off loose ends with Eddie Ruiz, who they'd disappeared into witness protection after a payoff. He loves you. In his way, she lied. Voice muffled. You're the perfect cover. I released her. Disgust souring the air. Love, I'm the chains he forged. I recorded it all on his phone, then shoved her toward the door. Walk away, or you're in the upload. She fled, heels echoing like gunfire. Back at the penthouse, I confronted the shell, my old body, propped in the armchair, eyes vacant, but stirring with Victor's returning awareness. Elena's timer ticked, 48 hours left. Wake up, I snarled, slapping my own cheek. My eyes fluttered open, confusion twisting into horror. Brooke? What the fuck? Welcome to hell. Victor. I paced on legs that obeyed, towering over the woman I'd been. 17 years of your lies. The crash? Staged with a jolt to your spine. Temporary. Reversible with the right black market stems. Sophia's been riding you raw while I mopped your brow. And Eddie? You fed him to the wolves to save your skin. He laughed. A wet rasp from my throat. Clever girl. But you're in over your head. That upload? Trace back to you, the devoted wife turned hacker. They'll lock you up for life. The bluff hit like ice water. He was right. Elena's tech was experimental. Untraceable, maybe. But my fingerprints, digital and otherwise, were everywhere. Controversy clawed deeper. Released the files. And I toppled his empire, but chained myself to its rubble. Or mercy.
No.
Not for this monster. I wheeled him to the balcony. The city sprawl a glittering indictment below. Wind whipped my hair, his hair, as I gripped the rails. One choice.
Vic.
Confess. Or we both jump. Insurance won't cover suicide fraud. His eyes darted. Calculating. You won't. You're too soft. I leaned close. Voice steel. Test me. The moment stretched, taut as a wire, until he broke.
Fine.
Call the cops. But know this, I did it for us. The money, the power, it was all to keep you safe.
Lies. To the end.
I dialed. Anonymous tip. Victor Langford's confession queued up on his phone. Files attached. Sirens wailed distant as the link frayed, my vision blurring, body rejecting the hijack. Elena's voice crackled in my earpiece. Extracting now. Hold on. The The swap reversed in a vortex of agony, slamming me back into my skin, soft, familiar, but forever scarred. Victor slumped, truly paralyzed now. The stims burned out in the chaos. Cops swarmed as I discovered him, the weeping wife playing her part one last time. The twist came at sentencing. 6 months later in a federal courtroom that smelled of polished oak and regret. Victor, in his chair, faced life for fraud, murder by proxy, the works. Sophia turned state's evidence. Harlan flipped. But as the judge banged the gavel, Victor locked eyes with me across the room, mouthing, "I love you." Not a lie. The files revealed one final secret. The crash was real, but he'd amplified the damage post-accident, dosing himself to fake permanence, all to bind me closer after glimpsing my growing distance. The cartel? A desperate bid to fund experimental treatments, hidden to spare me Hope's cruelty. I'd borne the blame not from malice, but his twisted protection, framing me briefly to throw off feds sniffing the money trail. Revenge's blade turned inward. Had I destroyed a monster? Or euthanized a man who'd caged himself for love? The courtroom emptied, reporters clamoring. But I walked free, vindicated, yet hollow. Brooklyn Langford. The servant no more, but queen of ashes. Was it justice? Or just another betrayal? You tell me. The aftermath was a media circus. Tabloids feasting on the carcass of our marriage like vultures on Fifth Avenue. Wheelchair wife's shocking revenge. Inside the Langford fraud, screamed the Post. My face splashed across every screen from CNN to TikTok true crime reels. I holed up in a sublet in Chelsea. Walls papered with NDAs. Elena's lawyers slapped together faster than a street vendor hawks knockoffs. The payout from Victor's frozen assets trickled in, enough to breathe. Not thrive, but freedom tasted like cardboard, dry and unyielding. Nights were the worst. I'd jolt awake, phantom limbs twitching, his legs strong and striding through boardrooms I toppled. Elena checked in weekly, her voice a lifeline laced with guilt. The neural echo fades, she'd say over encrypted calls. But the memories? Those stick. She was right. I remembered everything. The thrill of his stride. The weight of his secrets pressing like a crown of thorns. And Sophia, God. Sophia. After the plea deal, she slithered into obscurity, but not before sending a bouquet of black roses to my door. Card reading, you wore him better. Drinks? I burned them in the sink. Flames licking porcelain like accusations. Controversy wasn't done with me, it evolved. Women's groups hailed me as a survivor, plastering my story on podcasts about gaslighting gurus. Brooklyn Langford, the saint who snapped, one host gushed, while men's rights forums branded me a castrating harpy. Proof wives weaponized victimhood. Debates raged online. Should I have forgiven? Was the body swap assault or self-defense? I avoided it all, burying myself in therapy sessions that peeled layers like onions, each one stinging deeper. But revenge isn't a clean cut. It festers. 3 months post-trial. A letter arrived, hand-delivered. No return address. Victor's looping script on cream stock. Prison stationery, smudged with what might have been tears. Dearest Brooke, 17 years. And I never told you the full truth. The crash? I saw the truck coming. Swerved into it to end us both, me. The failure who'd gambled our future on bad deals, you. The light I didn't deserve. When I woke paralyzed, it was karma's gift. Faking the permanence? That was cowardice. Chaining you to my ruin so you'd never leave. The frame job. the cartel, desperation to fund a cure. Hidden because your faith in me was the only pure thing left. Forgive me, or finish it. Your servant,
Victor.
The words gutted me, rewriting history in ink. He'd tried to kill us? To spare me his shadows? The twist inverted everything. My revenge not against a villain, but a man drowning in self-loathing, dragging me under to feel less alone. I crumpled the letter, but it unfurled in my mind like smoke, choking out sleep. Elena's lab became my confessional, the basement now a shrine to what-ifs. "Want to see him?" she asked one rainy afternoon, screens glowing with hacked feeds from the upstate facility. I nodded, masochistic hunger overriding sense. There he was, Victor, shrunken and orange, wheeling through wreck yard gray, eyes scanning for ghosts. Our eyes met through pixels, mine wide with war, his soft with surrender. "Talk," the mic picked up his rasp to a guard.
Tell her.
"Tell Brooklyn I'm sorry. I signed off." Bile rising. Sorry? After the lies, the lovers, the life stolen? But the hook twisted deeper. Pity. For the boy he'd been, orphaned young, building an empire on his father's corpse. For the husband who'd worshipped me in silence, even as he poisoned the well. The controversial decision loomed like a storm front, visit or vanish. Forums buzzed with proxies for my soul. Go. Heal. Urged the empaths, stay away. He's poison. Snarled the cynics. I chose the road, less traveled, booking a conjugal trailer under a fake name, the kind of irony that bites back. The drive upstate was a gauntlet of autumn decay, leaves bleeding red along I-87. Radio droning about election scandals that paled next to mine. The prison loomed like a concrete scar, barbed wire glinting under overcast skies. Processing was humiliation incarnate, pat-downs, metal detectors beeping accusations. Then the trailer, forward panels, a bed that sagged like regret, coffee percolating bitter as truth. Victor wheeled in, chains rattling faintly, thinner than memory, but with that same piercing gaze. "Brooke," he breathed, voice cracking like old leather. No wheelchair theatrics, just him, diminished. I sat across the Formica table, arms crossed like armor. "You wrote." I came. His hands, gnarled now, truly reached halfway, then fell. The letter. Half-truths. The crash, I nodded off, high on coke from the party. Woke up hating myself more than the pain. Faked the rest to keep you. Pathetic. Yeah, a laugh.
Hollow.
Sophia was escape, not love. You, always the fire. Words piled like debris. Confessions of the cartel's grip. Debts from a merger gone south. Eddie's disappearance, a relocation with a new identity.
Not death.
The frame? A bluff to scare me straight. Back to his side after I'd whisper divorce in fever dreams. I was poison, he admitted, eyes wet. But you were antidote. Even in that swap, felt you in my skin, raging. Deserved it. The air thickened, tension coiling like a spring. Part of me wanted to lunge, throttle the lies from his throat. Another.
To fold into him.
Rebuild from ruins. Controversial? Hell yes, forgiving a fraud, betting a betrayer in a prison trailer. But as he described the cure he'd chased, stem cells smuggled from Swiss clinics. $20 million down the drain. The walls cracked. I bore it for you, I whispered, echoing his old line. The raid. The servitude. But you bore worse alone. We talked till dusk bled into night, voices raw, the percolator cold. When he wheeled to the door, chains clinking farewell,
He paused.
end it how you want.
Brooke.
Visit again? Or let me rot? I left without answering. The drive home a blur of headlights and half-formed vows. Back in Chelsea, Elena waited with wine and warnings. Don't drown in his narrative, she said, pouring Merlot like therapy. You're the one who walked, but walking felt like limping, each step echoing his sorry. The climax brewed in anonymity's underbelly. A tip from Sophia, post-plea. She'd gone legit. Running a victims advocacy blog led to a hidden server, Victor's final insurance, a dead man's switch of recordings. Not damning, but redemptive. Tapes of him fighting the cartel solo, bribing feds to protect me from fallout. She's clean, he'd growl to shadows. Touch her. You touch hell. Twist upon twist. The monster was mosaic. Shards of malice and mania glinting with misguided love. I debated deletion, destruction, controversial finality. Instead, I leaked them selectively to a journalist who'd treated me fair. Headlines shifted. Langford's redemption files. Was it all for love? Public furor exploded. Debates in diners. Threads tearing at ethics. Hero or hustler? Forgiving him made me complicit. Damning. Cruel. I chose middle ground. Monthly visits. No conjugal. Just words as weapons and bomb. But fate's a fickle bitch. 6 months in, Elena called, voice edged with urgency. The echo, it's back. Residual link. You feel him.
I did.
Flashes. Victor's cell. Cold seeping through bars. A cough racking his frame. Prison docs said pneumonia. But I knew better, soul sickness. The revenge I'd sown sprouting thorns. Come, she urged. We can reverse engineer a fix. Swap again. Heal him proper. The decision loomed, darker than the first. Risk my sanity to mend his body. Or let karma claim its due. Forums would riot, euthanasia by neglect? Or second chances for sociopaths. I drove north again. Rain lashing like judgment. The trailer reeked of bleach and boiled regret. Victor's cough echoing off thin walls like accusations from the grave. He looked spectral, skin translucent over bones, eyes fever-bright when I entered. Brooke, he rasped, wheeling closer, chains forgotten in frailty. Didn't think you'd come. I sat, hands clasped to hide the tremble, Elena's warning fresh, the link pulse stronger. His pain bleeding into my nerves like ink in water. Pneumonia's bullshit, I said flatly. It's the stim burnout. The faked years catching up. Elena has a way, swap again. Targeted this time. Fix the spine without the mind games. His laugh dissolved into hacks. A handkerchief spotted crimson. Hero complex now? After I caged you? He leaned in, breath ragged. Don't. Let it end. Clean slate for you, move to LA. Chase those designs you buried. Marry some surfer who doesn't lie. The words stung. Paternal and poisonous. Clean? You think absolution's a get-out-of-jail card. Flashes hit his Yale graduation. Proud grin masking daddy issues. Our wedding. His vows whispered fierce against my ear. The link wove memories unbidden, humanizing the horror. Controversy clawed. Save the sinner. Or salt the wound. We argued through the night. Voices rising like tempests, him railing against pity. Me dissecting his love as control's cruel cousin. You framed me, I spat. slamming the table. Made me the villain to play saint. And you thrived in the role, he countered, eyes gleaming. Devotion suited you better than freedom ever could. Admit it, those years. You were alive in service. The barb landed. Truth's ugly underbelly. I'd found purpose in his prison. Chains forging strength I mistook for sanctity. Dawn crept gray when I relented. One swap. Elena's lab. Tomorrow. But if it works, you confess everything, full.
Public.
No shadows. He nodded. Spent.
Deal. For you.
The return to Harlem was a pilgrimage through potholes and doubt. Elena's team assembled like conspirators in a heist flick. This time, precision ruled. Microelectrodes. No helmets. Just IVs dripping nanites to knit severed nerves. Safer, Elena assured, strapping Victor down beside me. Your mind stays put. We puppet the body. Reroute signals. Wake up.
He'll walk.
But the pain yours to share. Briefly. The hum built. A symphony of sparks. And I blacked out into his flesh again, legs tingling alive. Spine a river of fire. Through his eyes, I saw my face hovering, resolute. Now, Elena commanded. Code flew. Vitals spiked. And Victor's body, mine for the moment, convulsed. Muscles seizing in rebirth. I felt it all, vertebrae fusing like welded steel. Phantom itches racing up limbs long dormant. Agony crested, then ebbed. Leaving strength astride, I tested on wobbling feet. Elena's postdoc studying. It's holding, she marveled. Walk him out. The reversal yanked me free, slamming back into Brooklyn skin with a gasp. Victor stirred on his gurney, eyes clearing, then widening as he flexed toes curling deliberate. Holy shit, he whispered, swinging legs over the edge. Elena handed him scrubs, a grin splitting her face. Go slow. Rehab's your new mistress. He stood, shaky as a fawn, arms wrapping me in a hug that smelled of hospital and home. Thank you, he murmured into my hair. No mockery, just marrow-deep gratitude. We drove him to a halfway house upstate, parole fast-tracked on health grounds, me at the wheel of his old Escalade, Irony's engine purring. The press descended like locusts, but Victor faced them head-on, podium borrowed from a church basement, me at his elbow like a ghost. I faked it all, he announced, voice steady, legs planted firm. Not for greed, but fear of losing the woman who saved me daily. Brooklyn bore my sins. Today, I bear the truth. Cameras flashed. Questions barraged. Cartel ties? Cut clean. Cooperated fully. Sophia? A mistake. Excised. The frame job? My deepest shame. She sues. She wins everything. The confession rippled outward. A stone in scandal's pond. Firm dissolved in lawsuits. Assets liquidated to victims' funds. Eddie's family first. $1 million for their silence turned to solace. Sophia's blog pivoted to redemption arcs. Her byline crediting a tip from the inside. Elena published anonymized papers. Neural swaps hailed as medical moonshot. Ethics boards be damned. For us, a fragile truce. Victor rehabbed in anonymity. Walker traded for Kane. Then nothing. We met weekly, not as wife-husband, but survivors sketching boundaries.
Dinners in dive bars,
where he sketched architecture dreams I'd once shared. Me freelancing logos for startups that paid in possibility. You taste freedom yet? He'd ask. Eyes searching. Slow, I'd reply. But truth bloomed, yes. The body's swaps echo faded, leaving empathy's quiet hum, not possession, but understanding. He'd been no monster, just man magnified, flaws fractal under fortune's glare. I'd been no servant, but sentinel, guarding a love too tangled to name. The ending? Debatable as dawn. We divorced amicably. Papers signed over coffee. Him moving to a Philly loft for space, me reclaiming the penthouse. Walls repainted in colors that breathed. Last visit. He stood tall in the doorway,
Suitcase in hand.
Regret nothing, he said.
Kissing my cheek.
You gave me legs and let me walk away. I watched his taillights fade into Manhattan's maw. Heart a crossroads, relief or rupture. Friends called it closure, forums. A cop-out. Happy ever after? Or by tragic farce? You decide.
Me?
I picked up a paintbrush, dipped in the gray of what-ifs, and started creating. Turns out, revenge's sweetest twist isn't destruction, it's rebirth. One controversial stroke at a time.